A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it has been written through the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word that I too may go and do him homage." After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house they saw the child with Mary his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. On the feast of the Epiphany, maybe because of all the hustle and bustle of Christmas, we don't really take the time to focus on the meaning of the wise men in the East. It's almost like we take it for granted, like it's a cut and dry historical event where a group of wise men from the East traveled to see Jesus. But treating it like a cut and dry event isn't what is true about the story. What is true, however, is the power and the meaning of the story. First, considering how far they had to travel, the reader can easily infer that these wise men are not Jewish. When seeing the star, their instincts tell them to travel, to find where it leads. And when they find the star leading to Jesus in the manger, they prostrate themselves and do him homage. In other words, these wise Gentiles bow down to a Jew who they sensed was a very important person. But they are Gentiles, so their instincts would probably not lead them to the conclusion that Jesus is the Messiah as foretold in the Scriptures. They would most likely know nothing about that. Yet, the star ultimately leads them to Jesus in the manger. Considering their length of travel, they may have sensed that they were coming there for a reason. As a result, we should ask, why does Matthew tell this story? After all, the story of the wise men exists only in this gospel and nowhere else. So what does this story mean for Matthew's community? In this gospel, this event arguably paves the way for Gentiles to also become Jewish Christians. This, in a way, is the starting point that would open a Jewish sect, as Matthew would see it, to everyone outside of Judaism. It would, of course, need to evolve over the course of this gospel, But this evolution would be complete at the Great Commission when Jesus sends out his disciples to spread the good news to all nations. Although we often take for granted that all are welcome to follow Jesus, in the first century, this would be extremely revolutionary for these Jewish Christians. They essentially are in agreement with Paul the Apostle that this movement shouldn't be confined to Judaism itself. Although Matthew and Paul would probably have disagreed over the Gentiles needing to follow the Jewish law, which they seem to butt heads over, the fact that they both agree that this movement shouldn't be confined to only Judaism is absolutely crucial to the beginnings of Christianity. Without it, who knows if Christianity would have survived if it remained within the confines of Judaism itself. So that is, for me, the most importance of the wise men in today's gospel. This gospel ultimately tells us that Jesus and the kingdom of God is for everyone. That is what we mean when we say, all are welcome. As the hymn "Gather Us In" states, gather us in, the lost and forsaken, the blind and the lame, the rich and the haughty, and the proud and the strong. The kingdom of God is for everyone. So for us, a good way to apply this gospel is to ask, are we welcoming anyone who comes through our doors? If there is someone in church who we don't recognize, do we make the effort to welcome them to St. Vitus? Or do we simply stay in our pews and do nothing? From a practical standpoint, St. Vitus should be welcoming anyone who comes through our doors, whether they are Slovenian or not. After all, if we simply stayed within the confines of our Slovenian community, just like some of the Jewish Christians wanted Jesus to remain within the confines of Judaism, would the number of our parishioners increase? I would argue that they would trend in a downward direction. So we need to go out and welcome everyone in the neighborhood, all of Northeast Ohio, and to a certain extent, the entire world around us. Of course, this isn't limited to in-person evangelizing, but even by digital means as well. After all, when the wise men saw the star in the sky, they didn't just stay in place and admire its beauty. They followed it at a huge distance, even putting their lives at risk, until they found it shining over the manger in Bethlehem. In a similar way, we are supposed to go to great lengths to welcome others to our parish, as well as the church as a whole. Otherwise, our parish, as well as the entire Catholic Church, would not be able to sustain itself. In other words, in order for our parish and the church to survive, we have to go out and preach the good news to the world around us. So when you think about the great lengths that the wise men took to find Jesus, in a similar way, we must take great lengths to help other people find Jesus as well.